Welcome. We are back to normal programming. Yes, we are back to our Thursday night. Champs is over and we are back and we are back. And I just want to say once more, congratulations to all the schools and a special congrats to the champions, Kingston College for winning on the boys section and Edwin Allen their 10th title on the girls side. So welcome each and everyone. Welcome wherever you are tuning in from, whether it is from Africa, it is from Asia, North America, South America, Antarctica. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. Oceanic, all the continents. I see where all the continents are supporting my program, and I thank you very much. And I welcome each and every one. With me tonight, we're back into track and field business. Know that champs is over, and my guest tonight is Dr. Glenroy Robinson, formerly of Vere Technical High School. Yes, he is formerly of Vere Technical High School. And of course, tonight we will be talking about mental health. Yes, we don't talk about that a lot. We don't have this discussion a lot. So tonight we will be talking about mental health with Dr. Robinson. And Dr. Robinson is a licensed clinical professional therapist, and he will be telling us a little bit tonight what are some of the signs, what are some of the things we look for in a person when they are unstable mentally. And of course, I've had Dr. Robinson on the program before where he told us his story, his journey in track and field, and being a veerman and all of that fancy stuff. Dr. Robinson, welcome. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good. It's good to be here again. It's good to be here again.
Great, great. And we're going to get right into it because, of course, we're going to talk about mental health and, mental health in sports and stuff. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about your alma mater, Veer Technical. But before we get into that, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from. I just said that you're formerly of Veer, but just let them know where in Jamaica you're from, where you study, your area of study, and then we will get into the meat of the matter.
Well, hello everybody. It's good to be here again for a second time with Heather. She does an excellent job um, promoting track and field and things that impact track and field, like mental health. Um, I grew up in primarily in Denby, section of Maypen. I attended Vere Technical High School, whereas Vere is a technical school, so we studied technical things. Um, and my intention was to become an engineer, like most of my colleagues, right, who went to Vere Technical. They all became engineers or did something technical. I came to the United States, and when I went to junior college. I went to a junior college in Orlando, Florida, Valencia Community College. And generally, when you go to school here, um, one of the first things they do is give you an aptitude test, right? An aptitude test is a test that helps to determine where your strengths lie. And generally, they want to put you into an area where your strength is. In Jamaica, they just say, well, you're a guy, you're going to the technical school, you do technical things. In the United States, they kind of did something a little different. And when I did my aptitude test, I kind of discovered that I fell in kind of the social science area. Even though I did do well at math, science, and technology, but I kind of shifted from that area where people make a lot of money to meant to focusing on psychology, social sciences, and mental health.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dr. Robinson, tell me, mental health, what was the motivation that led you to this area of study?
Um, To be honest with you, it's the aptitude test. I took the aptitude test. The aptitude test said my focus should be in that area. Took a few psychology courses, mental health courses, found that it was a little less challenging than my engineering courses. And I guess I took the path of least resistance.
It was chosen for you, right?
It was chosen for me. It wasn't one of those things where I was experiencing challenges or family challenges, and then I just decided to try to figure myself out. It wasn't one of those things.
What is your role as a licensed clinical professional therapist? What exactly do you do?
Well, when you're a licensed mental health therapist, you can do a myriad of different things. My career started off in community mental health, where I provided mental health services to people in the community. I don't know how deep we want to get in this, but in the 50s, the United States kind of decentralized mental health. They closed down the mental health institutions. They started to put the mentally ill people back into the community. And so the services, instead of being in an institution, was provided or is currently provided in the community. And then I kind of I got away from that and I joined a private practice in where I live, provide mental health treatment to regular individuals who just experience change of life events, stressors, minor depression, minor anxiety disorders, etc. And then I moved from that to working in a correctional environment I still do provide some community mental health, but I work primarily now with individuals in a correctional environment.
We are from what you would call a society or an environment where when you hear about mental health, the first thing that a lot of us think about is that the person is crazy. I want you to educate the audience for me a little bit and just tell us exactly the term mental health. What does it really mean? Because there's a stigma that is attached to it. I want you to remove that stigma tonight. What is mental health?
Well, I hope I can remove some stigma, but
Yeah.
of course we all have we all have mental health, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
practice good mental hygiene, then we will in many cases or in most cases, maintain good mental health. So what is mental health? Mental health has to do with how you think, cognition, how you feel, affect, and how you behave. So if I'm looking at somebody's mental health, I'm looking at assessing how they think, how they feel, and how they behave. Of course, the first thing you can see in an individual is their affect, how they present. So I don't know if
But
that answers
you
the question.
But it is so funny. I'm trying to figure out why is it that the first place that our mind go when we hear about mental health is that person they're mad. When mental health is indeed it is just as you said, your state of mind, how you're able to handle stuff. But how do you approach the initial assessment and diagnosis of a mental health condition in a person, especially to know if they're unstable?
Right. Well, people are mentally ill. There are some people who are mentally ill, and there are a myriad of mental disorder. There's a very thick book called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, and I think there's a revised text coming out shortly with hundreds, literally thousands of different diagnoses, right? So there are many different forms of mental illness. But primarily what most people know about is anxiety disorder, which many people experience throughout the course of their lifetime, depression, which many people experience again throughout the course of their lifetime, PTSD, you'll hear that a lot, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder. And it's not the bipolar disorder where a female is having problems with her boyfriend or her husband, and she say you bipolar because he was just nice just a minute ago, and now he's angry. And people use that a lot,
And
misuse.
we use that term sometimes to describe the weather, especially if it's very hot now and then suddenly it change. We
Right.
say that the weather is bipolar.
Yeah,
But
which is
what is bipolar really? What is it? Can you see if you can break it down a little bit for us?
so bipolar disorder has to do with being manic 1 minute. It's kind of like anxiety, anxious, nervous, manic, feeling like your skin is crawling, like you want to get out of your skin. You're over talking, excessively talking, what we call positive symptoms, which is an increase in one's normal way of acting, right? So it's positive. Negative symptoms, on the other hand, is being down, depressed, don't feel like doing anything, laying in the bed, don't feel like working. And when somebody is manic, there's also a lack of sleep when they're depressed. Sometimes people oversleep. And bipolar disorder has to do with going through periods of mania and periods of depression. So 1 minute the person is up and happy and work and excessive work and they're good work, they show up for work, they're doing everything, they're creative, they're thinking, and then the next minute the person won't get up out of the bed, won't do anything, don't feel like doing anything, apathy kicks in, and it kind of fluctuates. Of course,
Is
go ahead.
Is there a trigger for that? Is it triggered by something? Because as it is now, we are living in what many call the new norm. No thanks to the pandemic. A lot of us have suffered loss, losses in different ways. I mean, I'm sitting in front of you right now and I am mourning, so how do we know when we need some intervention?
All right. So uh, everybody will at some time in their life go through some form of stressor, right? We're all going to experience loss. Loss is a natural process of life, and if we develop what is, well, if we're going to experience loss, and most people cope with the loss and recover because they've developed resilience over the course of their lifetime, and some people don't. They don't recover. They continue to experience the loss, and that experience becomes chronic, and then they just they can't find their way out of it. So what are some of the signs that you would look for? If someone comes to me, first thing that I'm looking at is how the person appears. For example, when somebody's not doing well, they they look really disheveled. Hair is not groomed, facial hair is not shaved, or it doesn't look very tidy.
But not for everybody, right?
Not
Some
for everybody.
some people will look their best and they're going through stuff.
If you're depressed, normally you are not going to look
Okay.
or present in your normal way. Most of the time, people will present with what we call a flat affect, right? And these things have to be going on for weeks before you can diagnose it as a mental illness, because if you have a loss, you will during a loss, as you're mourning the loss, you go through a stage of mourning. You'll go through shock, meaning that the person passed. You can't believe the person is. I just talked to him this morning. I can't believe he's gone. Then you, which is denial. Then you go through denial. Then you start to feel angry. About my spouse is gone. How did this happen? Can't believe he left me. Then you go to bargaining. You start to bargaining with God and with yourself. And if I had it to do all over again, I would have done it this way. And why did this happen? And then most people will feel some form of depression. I'll use myself as an example. I lost my wife in 2015 from breast cancer after 20 something years of marriage. And before that, I really never experienced any kind of changes in mood. Remember I said that it's about how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And I really never experienced any kind of mood changes or mood related issues. But sometime after the death of my wife, I'm walking around and I sense this kind of cloud, kind of a dark cloud that just kind of hovers, and you're trying to shake it. You're trying to shake this cloud, and it just don't shake that easily. I mean, in that moment. But as you work through the grieving process, if you are thinking clearly, Aaron Beck, one of the researchers in counseling and psychology, identify what he called the depressive triad. I'm not a good person. I'm not feeling good about myself. The world is not good right now, and it's not going to be better tomorrow, right? It wasn't good yesterday. I'm not feeling good. I'm not good. I wasn't good yesterday. I don't feel good right now. And I don't feel like tomorrow is going to be any better. If you think like that, then you're in that depressive triad that is very difficult to get over. What we should recognize is that tomorrow can be better. Tomorrow is probably going to be better if we work our way through the process, if we go through the grieving process, if we mourn properly, and if we put everything in its proper context. And eventually, the cloud went away and life just kind of went on as it should. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that place if we don't have the proper resilience to deal with our challenges as they come along. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny that you used your personal experience with losing your wife, because I'm now going to share a personal situation too. I lost my husband a few months ago. It's not a year yet, just a few months. And I had this show to do every week. And he died like last night, and I had to be on the show tonight. So the night after he died at home, I had to put on my clothes, come on with a smile, and get the show done, because it was already advertised. I know that people were looking forward to it. I did not have a backup. So I had to come out, and I've been doing this every week since he passed. And now, if I don't talk about it, I'm not sure if anybody can tell that I've lost someone. So is it that I am in denial because I'm not mourning? I don't look as if I'm mourning, or if I've gone through some loss or something. I don't know.
Well, I think the opposite of doing what you're doing is to do nothing. And if you do nothing, you will continue to do nothing, and then you will feed into that part of the depression that will then become kind of a chronic thing. You're not going to feel like doing anything, so you make yourself do something until you work your way through that process, right? And the thing about, like, I'm in my late 50s, right? In my mid to late 50s, and most of my colleagues are at the same age. And one of the things with life is that, if I remember back correctly, there was a time in my life when everybody was getting married, right? We were all in our 20s and we were getting married. That's a phase of life, right? And then we all got into our careers, another phase of life. And then we started raising families, right? Phase of life. And then we get to this age, and most of the time now, you're going to the hospital to visit somebody, or you're going to a funeral. It's another phase of life. So all of these things are phases in the life cycle, including death. And we either develop resilience over the course of our lifetime, and resilience often comes from our worldview. Like, my worldview is a Christian worldview. I grew up in a Christian home. I attended a Christian church, and the religion kind of tell you, there's birth, and then there's life, and you go through these cycles, and when you die, you go to heaven, and you're with Jesus, and there's, in my house are many mansions, and so on and so if you believe that, then you are hopeful, and that hope helps you to cope with life. So in that aspect, what I'm saying is that religion and your worldview can help you cope.
Indeed.
Or if you're a resilient person, what is that? The resilience is the ability to bounce back after a traumatic experience. And some people have that, and some people don't.
I don't know, but let me ask you something. What role do you believe in medication management in treating a mental health condition when a person is unstable? Whatever condition they have that causes them to be unstable. Medication management.
Okay.
Your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my thoughts on just mental illness in general. What causes it? Right? You gotta. What's the etiology of mental illness? Because to set the stage as to why I believe in medication or not, you have to know about the etiology of the disease. Mental illness, many of them, bipolar disorder, depression, etc., is it's genetic. There's a genetic component to it, right? So if you get a set of twins, more than 50% of the time, if one has depression, the other one will have it. Schizophrenia. These they do studies. So there's a genetic component to it. And then the other part of it is experiential, right? So you're predisposed to it. And then you have traumatic experiences that triggers it, right? And in many cases, schizophrenia, major depression, bipolar disorder, and these disorder, they're there, but they start to manifest themselves. They start to show themselves around age 18, 19, late teens, early adulthood is when somebody will get a break.
Does mental health have anything to do with a chemical imbalance or anything like that? Is it related?
That's my next point.
Okay.
In our brain, we have what are called neurotransmitters or neuromodulators. Acetylcholine, serotonin, dopamine, is just one or two or three. But there are hundreds of them.
Doc, you're speaking French.
French. Well, if most people have somebody who who's diabetic or have sugar, right? We call it sugar,
Yeah.
right? Where the body is not producing enough insulin. That's a chemical that the body needs to function for homeostasis to function properly. And the medication for that is insulin injection, and now they have some pills that you can take, right, to make the body function properly, so you don't lose your leg, you lose a limb, you don't get, your kidney doesn't fail, etc., etc. And if you don't take the medication, that's the end result, is that you're going to experience either the loss of a limb or kidney failure or something like that. Well, the same thing happens in the brain. The brain produces these neurotransmitters and these neuromodulators that helps homeostasis, help us to be stable, help our mood to be right, our affect to be right, and our behavior to be right. And when those things are off, when there is too little dopamine, too little serotonin, too little acetylcholine, too little of any neurotransmitter, you function poor. You don't function well. And what medication does is the same thing that insulin does for diabetes. It replaces the chemical in your brain that your body is not normally producing. And I've worked, so there's mental illness, depression, anxiety, etc. And then there's serious mental illness. So the serious mentally ill individual is the one that you see ending up in the hospital, and they're there for months, for days, for years. If they take their medication, you can see a person who is schizophrenic, and a schizophrenic individual is a person who has lost touch with reality, who can be grandiose, who can have hallucinations, delusions, etc. And they'll continue to have these things unless they're medicated. That's not an individual that I can go to and say and do individual therapy with until the person is stable enough on medication and can actually focus and follow instructions. So
Wow.
what gets the person to that point? A lot of us, when I was coming up in Jamaica, and somebody who it was typically normal, right? I have a friend from primary school, Denby Primary School, and one time I came back to Jamaica to visit. I don't want to say the guy's name, but
Yeah, you don't have to call his name. Yeah.
right. He was physically the strongest among us. He was the fastest among us. He was the most brilliant. I mean, bright. And I came back, and he was in Maypen eating out of the garbage can.
Wow.
And what I knew about him was he had an uncle who everybody used to tease, who had the same mental illness.
So as you said earlier, it's genetics. It can be it's genetics.
Yeah, it passes down genetically. And so I went back to Jamaica I don't know if I should tell this story. I went back to Jamaica one time, and the individual was functioning well, right? And I'm asking him what happened. Well, some evangelist came through town. The evangelist preached over him, he said, and he got healed. And I was thinking at that time how amazing that was. But then I went back afterwards, and he was
right back there.
He was eating out of the garbage can again. And I have all kinds of theories about that, about what happened to him. I'm thinking he went to church, they gave him some medication, he got stabilized, and they claim he's healed. And then when they went, because medication is very expensive. Psychotropic medication is very expensive, and when you don't get it, you fall off. Or he went to Bellevue. They put him on medication. He was stable
Okay, for a while.
for a while, and then he stopped taking the medication, and he slipped back into a schizophrenic.
Hold that thought, Dr. Robinson. Just want to say again, welcome to each and everyone. I see some people coming in. Venice Brown, welcome. Ozzy Dixon, Dorothy Scott, Genius. Olympians are always turning up on this channel. Thank you very much for being here. Caroline Myers, welcome. Monica Lewis, welcome each and everyone. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're coming from. If you're just joining us, I'm here with Dr. Robinson tonight, formerly of Very Technical. And of course, we are talking about mental health tonight, a topic that we don't talk about a lot. So we are, just talking about it tonight and some of the things that, as we get into the program, we're going to talk about some of the things that coaches can look for in their athletes. But coming back to you, Dr. Robinson, how easy or difficult it is to correct mental unwellness?
It is really not easy, and it takes a good therapist and a good client. And what I've learned over the course of my lifetime is a good client makes a good therapist, right? So if a person is taking their medication if it's needed, and also working through, because what happens when an individual becomes mentally ill or experience mental illness, we start to engage in, and it's not only the mentally ill, just in general, people engage in, started to think or utilize what we call cognitive distortions. Their ability to think is distorted and is not clear. And part of what therapy and counseling tries to do is to clarify and remove faulty thinking patterns and replace them with healthy thinking patterns. And it's challenging. Some people are very good clients who work their program, and then other people, it's just not. They're not going to do the homework. They're not going to do the assignment. They're not going to practice the coping skills, etc. Go ahead.
What is a good bill of mental health? How do you know when you are mentally okay? You are, I won't say perfect because we all have challenges in this life, but how do you know when mentally you are? My grandmother used to say a good bill of health.
Good mental health is the three things that I discussed earlier. Cognitively, you're thinking clearly, right? Your thinking is okay. It's linear. It's clear. Somebody can follow your argument. When somebody's mentally ill, or some of these mental illness, you're talking to these individuals and they're having what we call flights of ideas. 1 minute they're talking about this, then they're jumping over here, and you can't follow what they're saying. So it's not linear. So somebody who is thinking clearly is very important. Somebody's affect, right, the way they feel, is consistent with how they should feel. Like if I go to a comedy club and the comedian is telling jokes, and everybody in the thing is laughing and smiling and having a good time, and I sit there like this with a flat affect. I'm not enjoying life. I can't enjoy life. And then how you behave, your behavior. So if you think consistent with what is normal for your culture, if you behave in a manner that is normal for your culture, and if you feel in a way that is normal for your culture and a typical person in your environment, then I would think that your mental health is well, and you're doing okay. The reverse is also true. But go ahead.
Can we fake good mental health?
Oh, people
Meaning, can we pretend as if we're okay when really and truly we're not? Can it be faked?
people do it all the time.
I
People do it.
figured. Yeah,
People
I
do it
figured.
all the time. Now, um, I told you my story earlier about the death of my wife. At the time, I had two. Well, one of my daughter was in college, and the other one was pretty young, 13. So I mean, I was going through all my own mess. I got a 13-year-old at home, and my world as I planned it fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going into work every day, listening to other people's problems, and it was tough at the time because at the time, but you put your professional face on.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to bring my mess into a clinical experience, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
but there's work to be done, and I can't stay home forever and mope about um, my issues because everybody has issues.
Oh, yes.
In the end, everybody will experience a death, right? So there is. The Bible tells us there's nothing that is happening to me that is not common among men. So anything that is happening to me, there are hundreds of people out there dealing with the same thing at the same time. But I tell you what happened. I think at that time, I was more resilient, and I'm using that word for a reason. This is not the first time I'm using the word. I was more resilient then than I probably am now. I had um, a lot of support, family members. I was in church heavily at the time, so there was a lot of support from church, a lot of support people from work. I was thinking clearly. I was hopeful. I had healthy coping skills. Um, and I think if you have those things, if you have healthy coping skills, if you have a healthy support system, if you have strong relationships, strong support system, then I think you will eventually work your way um, through the grieving process. And eventually the cloud will lift and the sun will shine again. Uh,
Indeed, indeed.
right.
Let us go to sports a little bit, specifically track and field. Coaches work closely with athletes, especially juniors, children. The Boys and Girls Championship just concluded in Kingston, Jamaica on Saturday night. How can coaches recognize that their athletes are struggling mentally? What are some of the things that the coaches can look for in these children?
Coaches can look for what anybody would look for, right? Where you're looking for changes in behavior, right? Behavioral changes. If I'm consistently a happy, joyful, cheerful person, and then all of a sudden there's this major change or this major shift in my behavior that lasts over a period of time, then somebody should be concerned. But mental issues or mental challenges are going on all the time. And part of the issue sometimes with society is we feel like mental issues, mental challenges, stress only occurs when something bad happens, right? The most stressful time of year is Christmas, when everybody should be happy. I was watching Champs, and there was a young lady who won her event and cried, and it wasn't tears of joy. It was not tears of joy. You would expect that she would be happy, right? Um, can I? I mean, this thing was public, so I don't know if I can use her name. But
Sure, sure. Okay, it was public. We all saw the interviews and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, Terralong, who I've been following,
Oh, she wanted to break the 100-meter
well,
record.
she won and
And she
cried.
won gold, but she was crying.
She was crying, and she wasn't crying tears of joy, because sometimes people win. Um,
Yeah.
Alfred won the 60 meters and cried, the 60-meter world indoor championship, and cried tears of joy. Terralong cried because of stress, immense stress that she placed on herself, that family members, coaches, the school, the society,
Everybody,
the
yeah.
commentator, and the
Yes.
weight of the stress was so overwhelming, and she didn't achieve what her goal, and she
Yeah.
just kind of, and then she lost the 200, and I don't think her response was the same.
Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. You see, the thing is that she knows where her strength lies. And she knew that the competition that she was going up against in the 200, it wasn't a sure, because everybody was pushing her. Most of us were pushing her to break the record, which is 11.16,
Mhm.
set by her former teammate, who is Kevona Davis and Kerika Hill from Heidel. So a lot of talks were around her breaking that record. And you're right. And I like the fact that you use that example, that she won the gold and she cried because she did not break the record, but the 200 meters, her reaction was totally different.
Right. And life deals us cards that cause us to stress. Right?
Yeah.
Because normally, if she didn't have all these expectations, she would have won the race, run up in the stands, hug whoever she wants to hug. It's a joyous occasion, and right. But she put so much stress. The coach put so much stress. I don't know what the coach did, but she must have felt he must have prepared her to break the record. And she probably felt like, I disappointed my coach, I disappointed myself, disappointed my parents, disappointed my school, disappointed everybody, and now I don't feel good. And in that moment, that will pass, right? It's not a crisis. It's not something that anybody should be worried about. It's just a moment when she felt that, and normally it would just pass, right? Or somebody talk to her and prepare her.
But Doc, how do we recover from these moments that, as far as we are concerned, they are just so bad, they are so tragic? How do we recover and get our mind back into mental wellness?
I My experience, my teaching, my understanding of mental health in terms of normally functioning human being is that the majority of us, the vast majority of us, thankfully, um, has enough built-in self-resilience that we overcome life stressors, normal life challenges, etc., etc. In Terralong's case, hopefully somebody, her coach, her mom, somebody in her life, her
Yeah,
past.
she was being consoled by her mom, but I'm sure she's okay now. Her mother was there as a big support for her.
Right,
So,
right. And that's what occurs normally, right? And
mhm.
so this is not somebody who has to go sit down in front of a therapist or a counselor or anybody. It's just that happens. I felt bad in the moment. I felt terrible. My mom counseled me. My coach is probably going to sit down and, hey, you're just a first year class two. You got another shot at this thing. Let's not overdo it. Let's prepare better next year, and let's take it down next time, right? And generally she'll just laugh about it, move on, and know that she has some targets. Plus, the year is not over. She has other stuff to do. So let's move on and take care of business, right? And most of
Exactly.
us do that, right?
Exactly, because she has Carifta coming up this weekend. This
Yeah,
weekend is the Carifta game. As a matter of fact, the Carifta game start this Saturday. So
yeah.
I'm almost sure that the Jamaican team is either in Grenada already or they're in transit. But what strategy would you suggest to coaches to create a supportive environment for athletes to discuss mental health concern, to let them know that, look, mental health is not necessarily a bad thing. It just has to do with how you're able to handle your emotions. How would you, so if you have a group of coaches to talk to about this, what would you tell them in order to create an environment so that athletes can come and feel comfortable talking about their discomfort?
I think that what we want people to have, or what people should try to have, or try to develop in their life, whether it's a young athlete or somebody my age who might start to deal with physical illness, memory challenges, and all the things that we deal with, is resilience. To develop resilience. What is that? Resilience has to do with knowing yourself, having self knowledge, developing a sense of hope and being hopeful, always being hopeful, developing healthy coping skills, right? I start to feel stressed. I start to feel um, angst, feeling that my mind is racing. My heart feel like it's going to jump out of my chest because I'm starting to experience anxiety, or I'm starting to experience panic attacks. Learn how to relax, learn how to self-soothe, practice mindfulness, which means I'm staying in the moment, I'm being in the moment. I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm not thinking about what happened before. I'm not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm thinking about what being in this moment, feeling myself, grounding myself, thinking about what I'm thinking about, and just kind of self-soothe. Um, and then make sure that you have healthy, strong relationships. Um, I'm relating well with my parents. I'm relating well with my siblings, my brothers and sisters. I'm relating well with my neighbors. I have friends. I have people that I hang out with. I have colleagues. I have somebody special in my life that if I am going through stressors, I can call that person and talk to them and don't feel like I'm being judged. Um, and I feel comfortable just talking to and relating to that person. I think we all need that um, in our life. And then just having a healthy worldview, a healthy perspective on life, and a place where you can go and find answers for the challenges that you experience in life. Like I said before, um, I grew up in a Christian home. I believe in the Bible, and the Bible has a lot of answers. Uh,
True.
some of the challenges and the stressors, if we believe them, that we face in life. So, generally, that's where I go. Like, when I start to really feel down and sorry for myself, I go to Corinthians chapter 10, chapter 1, I don't know it. I think it's Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. There's nothing that is happening to you when my wife, that is not common among men. Lot,
True. True.
lots of
True.
people get cancer. Lots of people die, and when that happens,
But when it hits home, Doc, is a different feeling. You hear about these things and people losing loved one, but when it hit your door, it hit different because, all right, going back to me just a little bit, where I lost my husband a few months ago, and I'm trying to recover from that. And now this week, the week of champs, while I was enjoying champs, I got a call from Jamaica that my cousin, who is like a sister to me, we grew up together, the principal of Alpha Primary, she passed away, and I spoke to her not so long ago. uh, it's hard to, it is so hard to really get in that mental wellness space when you're trying to recover from one loss and then another one come and just hit you. I mean, it I don't know. I am here. I am here because I love track and field and this program, but I can tell you when I switch off this camera, I'm going to go back into that mode because this is someone who she's in my age group. And you know what I'm thinking about? I'm saying it could have been me.
And it can, right? That's the nature of life. Life is fleeting, right? But and I think that you should take your time and grieve. You should go through your process. There is no rush, right? So you take your time, you grieve, you utilize your resilience, the people around you, your support system. You remain hopeful. You keep on moving. You keep on doing what you're supposed to do. You keep on doing what you're supposed to do. And the last thing you want to do, well, healthy mental health, right? Just
Yeah.
just doesn't happen by chance. There's mental hygiene, just like there's sleep hygiene, right? There's or oral hygiene. I brush my teeth a certain way. I practice certain um, things to help me sleep better. I need to get 8 hours of sleep so that I can recuperate. Mental health is the same way. If you got to eat right,
You
yeah,
gotta exercise.
you got to exercise. You should try to practice mindfulness, be in the moment, right? Those individuals are gone and it's painful, but guess what? You're supposed to feel pain. That's part of the grieving process, right? um you're supposed to feel. You don't have to, but most people feel down. Most people feel depressed. Most people question God. Why did you let this happen to me? I had my life all spent, planned out. I was supposed to be here for years with my husband, and now he's gone. It's the nature of life. It happens.
But you know, we are adults and we can handle it. But just to go back to the athletes, I was watching champs like yourself and many others on the weekend. And I love to listen to the analysis and I love to listen to the children's interview. And a lot of the children, when they were interviewed, some of them said that they were nervous. One young man said he was fretting, another one said he was worried. How do we get them in a space to let them know that if you're having some mental challenges, whatever it is, whether it is fear of running with another person, whether it is fear of running in front of a crowd, how do we get the coaches, equip coaches to be able to see that something is going on before this athlete go out on the pitch to compete?
Well, if you ever run, you know that it's normal to feel anxious, right? To feel butterflies, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't want that individual to not feel anxious, because the feeling is part of what motivates you. The question is, how do you manage the feeling, right? Because once the gun goes off, that feeling goes away, and that turns into energy that propels the person down the field, right? Um, I teach all the time. I was somewhere teaching a seminar this past weekend for 4 hours. I got all kinds of butterflies until I start talking. Same thing this evening. I'm going on. I've done this before. I do it. I'm really easy with know how to do it, but I get butterflies.
You
Uh,
were nervous. You were nervous before coming on tonight.
yeah, because
But Doc, we've done this before.
yeah, but I'm excited about it. But it gives you it. My brain works better. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. Right, and I felt the same thing when I ran track. I
Yeah.
line up. I'm going to use a Usain Bolt example. Usain Bolt is kind of superhuman. He won every race, and if he lost one against
Justin Gatlin.
Justin Gatlin, and he lost one that Johan Blake won. Remember that race?
At the trials, yes, I remember. 2012 it was, Olympic trials.
You watch Usain Bolt. How many times did he false start in his that you can remember?
One time. 2011.
In his whole career. Why? Mm-hmm. Why did that happen?
Nerves.
I think about that race when it happened, because I was watching it, and I think I've thought about this a bunch of times. Why would that happen to a guy who knows that
nerves?
He is the greatest 100 meter and 200 meter sprinter in the world. I came up with two reasons. Number one, he did it on purpose because he knew if he didn't do that, Johan would never had won any medals, any international
So gold. You're saying he gave that one to Johan?
Gave it to Johan. That's one. That's
okay,
one,
let me hear your other reason.
That's one reason, right? If I'm like, if Bolt is like any normal a person who wants to win, he probably wouldn't give up a gold medal. So, but that's my first theory. I'm like, man, he wanted to give that up. Let this boy win one, right? Make Johan eat a food. The second one is, if you follow his running throughout that year, Blake was beating him in practice. Blake beat him at a bunch of meets. So he was in a situation that was unfamiliar to him. And nerves got him.
Nerves.
Because he know that if he didn't beat Johan Blake to that start, it was over.
And I said the same thing. Yeah. 2011, when that happened, I said to myself, Usain was trying to get the start of his life because Johan was in tip-top shape. So he was trying not to play around with Johan. And remember, they trained together.
Mm-hmm.
So he was trying to get the start of his life, but in some way it backfired and the results work out the way how it worked out.
Yeah. So here's my point. Even the superhuman feel the stressors of life.
True.
And even even Usain Bolt, at least one time that we're aware of, was not able to calm his nerve.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, luckily there are skills that we can learn, meditation, there are a number of different skills that we can learn, like listening to music, thinking of calming thoughts, and other things that we can learn. We can learn that will help us to soothe and calm our nerves and help us to perform better.
Yeah, you're right about that. You know, it doesn't matter how much, because even me doing this show every Thursday night, sometimes I feel a little nerves, and I'm like, why should I feel nervous? I know the sport well enough to represent myself, but sometimes I'll feel a little nerves. But by the time I turn the cameras on, I am fine. And what I used to do when I used to go to UTech, if anybody has gone through UTech, every course you do, you have to do a presentation. So UTech helped me with public speaking. And every time I have a presentation, I used to go in the bathroom and chew gum and talk to myself. I used to talk to myself and say, okay, Heather, because I hate public speaking before. I used to get so nervous. And when we have a presentation, I used to stand in the back. And the worst thing you could do, because the professor or the lecturer is going to call on you. And, you know, I eventually got over it. But this nerves thing, it is no joke. It is no joke. And it doesn't mean that mentally you're unstable.
No, I mean, if I think it's actually necessary and helpful, but you have to challenge. You have to channel it, and you have to control it.
It's hard to control, Doc. I can tell you, I've been through it. I used to suffer from panic attack. Anytime I know that I have public speaking to do, I used to get panic attack. I don't get it anymore because I've even gone to the doctor about it, and she gave me breathing exercise to do. So when I have public speaking to do, I normally find a quiet corner and do some breathing exercise, and it helps, and it it eventually go away. But it's not a nice feeling. It is not a nice feeling. It can make you make a fool of yourself,
Mhm. Yes,
even when you know your material very well.
right. Well, competence kind of help you overcome
Yeah.
competence, meaning
Yeah.
knowing it, doing it. I can do
Mm-hmm.
it with my hand tied behind my back. Then all of a
Yes.
sudden, no, I'm not. I get nervous, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
panicking. My heart is not pumping like it's going to come out of my
Yeah.
chest. My brain is not racing, so I can't focus and concentrate.
Yeah, I don't suffer
Yeah.
from that anymore. But what steps can be taken to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health, especially among our children, the athletes, the student athletes? What kind of measures or strategies can be used to reduce the stigma that is?
Uh, I think education,
Mm-hmm.
educating the public, educating parents. Um, when I was growing up in Jamaica, before I actually met my first, well, I didn't even know the person was schizophrenic, right? Um, when I was young, my thing was dopey box him, and him
Mm-hmm.
just start act crazy, right?
Yeah.
Um, so a lack of education
Mm-hmm.
causes people to put their own label on stuff. And when you put your own label on stuff, then it turns into a stigma and it
Yeah.
becomes a problem for everybody, right? If if I know that um, schizophrenia runs in families, and somebody has a family member who is schizophrenic, um,
Karen, stop it. Karen Brown is saying it's good to get Yes, yes, Doc. It's good to get nervous. I get nervous, but as soon as I get in front of the crowd, started talking, it goes away. So she's saying it's a good thing.
yeah,
I don't think so. It's nah.
I think it's a good thing. It's a motivational thing that just needs to be controlled. But educate in terms of how you get rid of stigma.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with education,
Yes,
and
it does.
and luckily we start to see some of our athletes um, start to talk about their
Yes, sports psychology has become a big part of the conversation now.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I know Sharika Jackson talked a little bit about her some challenges. Um, Shakari Richardson talk about her challenges after her mom died that led her into smoking marijuana, and then seems like she's developed some coping skills over the year. Now she's
Mm-hmm.
functioning better,
Mm-hmm.
operating better, doing well, appears to be fairly stable.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are visible coming out and talking about their experience with mental illness will make it um, more acceptable, not punishing people because of their mental illness,
You're right.
um, helping people to cope and providing the resources that people need to cope will reduce stigma. and then actually seeing somebody who you know face mental illness, deal with it, and cope with it appropriately will also cause people to understand it better and then learn about it and accept it more.
In your practice, what are some of the strategies that you use to empower your patients through their journey? In getting to from unwellness to wellness mentally, that coaches could use to help
Um,
their student athletes.
right. So I remember when we started off, I said that mental health has to do with how you think,
Yeah.
how you feel, and how you behave. So those are the three areas if you're going to help an individual to change his or her behavior that you have to try to impact. In what I do primarily now is use what is called cognitive behavioral therapy. How you think affects how you feel, affects how you behave. And their actual skills that we can teach in different areas. If it's depression, there are skills that you can teach individuals to help them cope with their depression, to get out of the depression, and to move towards a more healthy way of thinking. The same thing with anxiety, with breathing exercises, relaxation techniques, being in the moment, staying in the moment, and practicing exercises that can help to calm you down, to soothe you, to make sure your heart doesn't feel like it's coming out of your chest. And
It's an awful feeling, man.
it is an awful
Yeah.
feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time people can learn. It's a cognitive thing, right?
Yeah.
So I feel panicky. And the first thing that it impacts is your breathing. People start right, and one technique is to help the individual to slow down the breathing and to get it back to a place where it's normal. And if you're able to do that, then normally over a course of time, after making yourself and relax, then the panic attack and the feeling of panic and the chest um, discomfort generally goes away.
Wow. Karen and Judith Williamson is saying that happens to me in with new events, traveling, exam. Don't even talk about the traveling, Judith Williamson, especially flying. I've gotten over it now, but trust me, Karen Brown is saying acceptance and talk about it help in the healing process. That's a very good point Karen Brown is making, because it now goes to my next question. How can we be honest about what we're feeling and make an effort to get some help?
Right. Well, everything is individualized, right? So if I'm working with an individual, my focus is on that person, and the attempt is to try to make the person comfortable, so that the person and join with the person. So if you notice, most of the time when I talk, I tell a story about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do the same thing in counseling, so that the person that I'm talking to, a lot of time people they're coming to see Dr. Robinson. They put you in this position of authority, and now who wants to speak to authority figure, right? So your objective is to try to join with the person. You tell a story about yourself or about somebody else, um, and then you're trying to elicit from that person their story. And a lot of people are not willing to initially come out and start to share
To
until,
share their story. That's
yes,
true. That's true.
until they feel comfortable with the individual that's working with them. In Jamaica, I think we have a bigger problem, a bigger issue
We
than
do.
than people in the United States. I think in the United States, the whole mental health issue is not fully accepted, but it's more accepted. In Jamaica, people don't trust medication. We don't want to take anything into our body that's not natural. If it's made by people, it's not good, it's not right. And that comes a lot from our belief system. And so generally, when I run into an individual where I work who is not doing well mentally, and that person is from Jamaica, I'm going to have a challenge because that person, and it's not just Jamaica, it's my observation is it's young Black men in general.
You know, you just segue into my next question, because I was going to ask you, how important is the collaboration between a government and its people to navigate and to ensure that the population is at least at a certain level as it relates to mental wellness?
That's a very big, when you're talking about government and people, it's a very big topic that deserve its own how hour, right? time
Hmm.
time frame.
I agree. Yeah, yeah.
Because we part of what often leads to mental illness, separate and apart from the genetic component of it, is what they now call adverse childhood experiences, right? And a lot of that happen everywhere, but it happens
It happens a lot in Jamaica. Yeah.
in Jamaica, right? Where
Mhm.
people experience trauma, whether it's, you know, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse,
Yep.
spousal abuse, gunshots every night, Mr. Joe getting killed down the street, um,
A lot of it. A lot of it.
on and on and on. I remember when I was growing up in Maypen, still remember this to this day. There was a guy that lived on the street. You know, I live at the bank of this gully. Across the gully, there's Jackson Street, and there's guy Mr. Jackson. I was in class with his daughter, and back in 1979 was the first time I ever heard of somebody invading. I became aware of people invading somebody's house and killing them, and it leaves an imprint that often does not really go. We kind of cope with it. You move on
Hmm.
with it, but then if you
We
think,
just work with it, as they would say. We just
yeah,
have to work with it. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
we just run with it because we don't have any. What's the
No
option, right?
options. There are no options.
Right. And back in my time, nobody came to school. Nobody came to he. I was in class with his daughter. Nobody came to school and talked to her about it. I had a teacher, Miss Corey, Denby Primary School, who died of cancer. Nobody came, and there was no talking and allow students to talk and cope and deal with all that stuff. It just didn't happen. But I think,
Listen, when I was growing up,
yeah,
this wasn't even a conversation. Children couldn't even go and tell their parents that mentally I don't feel well.
yes,
It wasn't a conversation when I was growing up in the 80s
right.
and the 90s, you know. So
Well, we and yet we were. I feel like we were more resilient now than people now. People are starting to manifest things. Like you'll start to see kids start to cut. There's a lot of cutters now.
and
That's
they're not just cutting the hand anymore. What they're doing, they're cutting the inner leg that nobody can see.
Yeah, I can tell you about it, but
Wow.
that's a different.
Yeah.
Those are those that move into an even deeper place concerning mental illness where we start to talk about personality disorders, which are disorders that is caused by the experience of trauma throughout the course of life, and poor coping skills that is developed as a result of these traumas.
We are still a little away from it. We're still not having the conversation, and we still have this thing where from it says mental, it means that somebody crazy, and we just forget it, and everybody else okay. If you're not living on the street, you're mentally okay. The minute you're living on the street, then you're mad, you're mentally whatever. But
Right.
for us who look clean and put together, we are okay.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily work like that.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And you know, back in the day, there were mentally ill people who were in Jamaica who were successful because they were in a situation where they had a support system, right? We know they weren't going to go get a job or nothing, but if they live in the country, they might help out with this or help out with that. But they have their grandmother lived down there, their cousin, their uncle, their brothers, their sister, and they're able to function. But it's a little bit different when society change and people move away, and there's that safety net is no longer there. So you see a lot more people on the street, a lot more mentally ill people, because that resilience, that support system, that hope, those relationships are no longer there. So we start to see the manifestation of that is a lot more people developing what we call serious mental illness, major depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, etc., etc., etc.
How do you prioritize self-care to maintain your own mental wellness?
I think I used to do a better job, right? Again, I go back to my upbringing. I grew up in a Christian home, went to church, etc. And my concept of a human being is that we're body, we're mind, and we're spirit. And I think it's essential. And the reason I say that I'm probably not as resilient as I used to be is there was a time in my life when I exercise, I try to eat, I take care of my, I try to
There was a time, Doc, you're not exercising anymore?
I am exercising.
Okay,
I told you I did my 1 hour walk before I came on.
Okay.
So I do exercise. I do try to eat right. But in terms of my spirit, man, I don't go to church, or I don't fellowship as I would like to. And so in terms of how do I take care of myself, or how I think somebody should take care of themselves, I'm not saying you should go to church, or you should go to mosque, or you should go to the synagogue, or you should go to whatever the Rastafarians do. You should have a spiritual way that you reflect on and think about life. You should take care of your best to take care of your physical body, and you should take care of your mind, your mental self, how you think. And if all those things are balanced, then I think that you will be a healthy, normally functioning human being.
How do you stay up to date with the latest research and development as it relates to mental health? Do you have to be constantly studying?
We are when you in most fields, most professions in the United States, and I'm assuming Jamaica does the same thing. You have to do what is called continuing educational credits, because we're all kind of lifelong learners. And the technology of our field, just like Apple update their phone, and now it's Apple 14 or 15. I don't know where it is. Our field has the same thing. People are constantly doing research. They're constantly updating the technology of the field. And so what we do is we go to seminars, we go to workshops, we read. You join professional organizations, you read the material, and we're like me. I'm required to do 40 educational credits every 2 years, meaning that I have to spend 40 hours studying some subject matter concerning my field.
Is there any emerging or advanced technology that you think will help as it relates to treatment?
For mental health,
Mm-hmm.
well, the only advancement in technology that I see as being helpful now is that prior to COVID, if I was going to meet with an individual and bill for the services that I provide, that person would have to be sitting in front of me and I would have to be talking to the person. And we couldn't engage in therapy outside of the, like in my case, the state that I'm living in.
Mm-hmm.
With COVID, there's a lot of bad things about COVID, and there are lots of
And there is also good, yeah.
about things about COVID. For example, what we're doing now, right? That kind of sped that up,
You
enhanced it.
are way up there and I'm way down here, and we're having this discussion.
Same conversation. Well, I had a family reunion on Zoom during COVID,
Yes, man.
and now I can do therapy with an individual in another state, in another country, by using this technology.
Using technology.
Yeah. And it lowers the cost because mental health treatment is very, very expensive. The medication is expensive and the therapy is expensive. And so the cost reduces the probability that an average person is going to seek help. You know what I mean? Most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
the average person, the person on the lower part of the spectrum, is left out of mental health treatment because it's so expensive and insurance doesn't cover it. Who is going to come out of their pockets with $200 an hour, $180 an hour just to go sit down and talk to somebody, right? That's, at least here, that's the cost.
Yes, it is. It is. But let
Uh,
me ask you. Oh, when
yeah,
you finish that thought, no, go
no,
ahead, Doc. Let me
yeah,
ask you. Let me ask you something. When you compare prior to COVID and post COVID, when you look at the numbers, would you say that mental health, mental unwellness has increased since the
dramatic,
pandemic?
dramatically, dramatically for the kids as well as the adults. What happened is a lot of people were staying home, and staying home means isolation, which is one of the main component of mental illness, is to isolate, is to not be in contact with, associated with, getting, with other people. And isolation, when you isolate, you're in your head a lot more. You think, right? You're
True.
there by yourself, you're in your room. And now you find a lot of people don't want to go back and socialize. They get jobs where they're working from home, so they have no real social interaction. They don't interact with people. You hear, I like my dogs more than I like people.
How will that impact mankind though? In your opinion, how will that impact us? Because some of us get so comfortable now in our own space, not interacting, that we're getting too used to it.
Yeah, I think that it's important to be intentional about what you do. And by being intentional, I mean that we should try to make time and plan and strategize to spend time with other people. Otherwise, you will start to develop anxiety when you run into other people, right? Because I haven't run into another. I just go, somebody might just go to the store, they shop, they don't talk to anybody, they don't know anybody, they pay. Or in case here, you can shop at Walmart and they deliver your grocery, they deliver your clothes.
I know it very well.
Right. And so you spend very little time with other people. And that's why I think that it's good to take care of the spirit, man, because if you can go to church online, but I think it's a bad idea. I think it's important to go and fellowship. Every now and then you can do it online, but I think you should actually take time to dress up, to look nice, to look clean, to feel good about yourself, to go out and socialize and fellowship with other people.
COVID took away dress up and looking hot and looking sexy and all those things because we've spent so much time at home doing everything that you almost forget. Thank God for this show. I look forward to this show every Thursday night.
Mhm.
Even before now, because I get an opportunity to dress up and put myself together and stuff. But
Right.
COVID has caused us to be living a new norm because I have friends right now that said sometimes they don't even feel like talking on the phone.
Right. And I think females are better than males at this kind of stuff. Most of the time you hear the ladies say, I'm gonna have a female night out. They go out with their friends, they go off on a weekend with their friends. Males tend to isolate and not have friends, right? So we have to make an effort to meet people, to go out with people, to spend time with people, go out to dinner, talk. Um, and then when you're getting into your discussion with your friends, you'll learn that the challenges that you're having, your health challenges, the way you're thinking, the way you're feeling, you're not the only one that's experiencing the thing, and then you can learn from others.
Wow, wow. So if a coach is he's coaching his team and he realized that there are some athletes who just want to be by themselves, is that a bad thing? Even if they're doing the drills, they stand in a separate area. If they're doing the laps, they're running by themselves. Could it be mean that something is going on with that athlete?
If it's a pattern, because most of the time when you're practicing, it's a team thing. It's a team drill. It's a drill. We're going through the certain drill. We're running certain. Some people are just naturally shy, naturally want to be by themselves. But I think even if it's natural, a part of the whole being on a team, coming to school, is being a part of, right? So attempts should be made with the permission of the individual, because the focus should be on the individual, that person kind of join in, learn social skills, learn to speak. For example, if somebody stutters real bad and got teased about it, they might not want to
Yeah.
talk too much or socialize with other
And
people.
we love tease people already, right?
Exactly.
And give people nickname, call him
Right off
Stammer.
right off of the bottom of Mr. Stammer, right?
Yeah, him a
Right.
Stammer right away, man.
Right away, right away. And,
You
and,
know
and
something. Somebody asked me that question. An
yeah,
American Caucasian asked me that question. She said, "Why is it that every Jamaican have a nickname? Some of these nicknames don't even have nothing to do with your real name."
right.
I I just had to say to them, it's just a part of the culture.
Yeah. And back in my time, we didn't feel traumatized because we got a nickname. But
No,
these
my
days,
nickname was the sweetest thing when we were growing. My nickname when I was growing up is Ants.
yeah.
Ants. Because I was skinny. I mean, I'm still skinny, but I don't
My,
know. We just
my
take it to another level.
mine was worm.
Worm. And I
Yeah.
think Vivian, where's Vivian? Vivian was on the live earlier. Vivian is wiggle worm.
Oh man. Gigi Winer.
Gigi Wina. What a name for Vivian. Vivian Spence
You
Morano. Big up
you
yourself.
you the
Jamaican
one bring
Olympian.
you the
Formerly
one
of
bringing
the
you the one bringing that out. I didn't want to bring
Gigi Wina.
Gigi,
Gigi
right.
Wina. What a name.
What a name. What a name.
What a name. But yeah, we're a different kind of people. But the mental health thing, as you said earlier, and I totally agree, it is a lack of education why the stigma is so strong.
Mhm.
that if a person said, "Oh, mentally I'm not feeling good," we take it as a joke or we ridicule them or something. But I'm going to go into another section now because I want to ask you about very technical. But before I go there, is there anything about mental health that I did not touch on that you think is important that you would like to share with us?
I think that you've done an excellent job covering the subject, and I don't know if I have anything else to add other than just to encourage people that not if you're not thinking, if you feel like you're not thinking properly, if you feel hopeless, if you feel like um, tomorrow is not going to get better, life is not going to improve, the world is a terrible place, and life just stinks, and you can't find your way out of it, that you would reach out and seek some help, seek some assistance, speak to somebody, and uh, work on yourself and get yourself.
Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? If it's even to go to a close friend and said, "I think I need to talk to someone, will you accompany me to speak to someone?"
Yes, it's
It be
important. It's important just to take a step, right? Because when you're depressed, you might not feel like getting up out of the bed. So just take a step, get out of the bed, and seek help.
one of the things that I think help, well, it helped me is that I work out a lot. I exercise 6 days out of the week from Sunday to Friday. And I find that the exercise helped me, especially. But let me ask you, Doc, for people who live alone like myself, and has had two losses to the grave back to back, how I mean, I'm a strong person. I consider myself a very strong person and I can get out of situation and everything. But a person who lives alone and continues to have these kind of tragedies, how would you encourage them to pick up the pieces? I know you said they are to get help, but when they lay down in that bed with the remote and they don't want to eat, they don't want to take a shower, they don't want to see nobody, their family calling, they're not answering the phone. How do you get them back into society from up here?
Uh, I, I think that most when you're dealing with mental health and you're dealing with the individual, the the person, the client, the individual is the one who needs to take action, because you can't force or make an adult human being do anything. You can
But
try.
sometimes you don't know, Doc. Sometimes we have to save people from themselves because a person lives alone
Yeah,
and they lost a loved one. And you're calling them, they're not answering. You come by to check on them, and they're like, "Oh, I'm fine." They're not doing anything. And you see the signs that they are not okay. But sometimes we have to push some of these people, especially if you come to visit them and you realize the place is untidy a certain way. They're not doing anything. You can't get them on the phone. They're not in touch.
all
People
right.
like
So
those, you have to pull them out of their
yeah,
situation.
this is going to sound very harsh and callous, but what I've learned over the course of my lifetime of working with people is that oftentimes you can do so much and no more. Because if you, first of all, you cannot make an adult human being do something that they do not want to do. You can
Sometimes you
hold on,
can.
hold on. No, you can encourage, you can ask, you can try to motivate. Um, in the end, the individual has to recognize that there is a need to change, and then take the necessary steps
I agree.
to change. I can go and I can listen, and I can listen, and I can encourage, and I can talk, and I can cajole, and I can encourage, and I can inform and provide information and educate. In the end, um, I have recognized over the years that to maintain my own mental health, that sometimes
Yeah.
I got to turn that one over to God and Himself, and then I have to maintain my own sanity. And
Doc, all
and
we
it's
have to do is get some friends and go by them house, open up the windows, the blinds, draw them out of the bed, do something that they will thank you in the end. Some people need that. I don't need that because I have a very, like you, I grew up in the church. I have a very strong faith. And even though losing someone to the grave, it hurts like hell because I'm talking to you right now and I'm hurting. But because I am spiritual, I have a very strong connection with God. I pray about it and I talk to Him. And I also understand that it is a part of the cycle of life where we're all going to leave here. It's just that the hurtful part is that some of us will leave before some. So I have that mindset and stuff, but I'm talking about the person who because if it was some other person, this show would not be happening tonight and maybe for another little while,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it's I can't change what happened. So I just have to trust God and trust that what He did, it was the right decision because we are not in control. But you have some people who they give up on everything and they question God and they're upset, they're angry, they're bitter to the point where they're hurting themselves and they don't even realize that they are a threat to themselves.
I am
With that said,
okay. Uh-huh.
continue with your thought, and then we're going to go into your
No,
alma mater,
no,
Ver.
I was going to say that I am very familiar with those with all of the above, and in the end, sometimes it's your family member, the person you
True.
just talk about. Sometimes it's your family member, and um, if you can't take care of yourself, you got to recognize when you've done all that you can do, and there's it's up to the individual to seek help.
Yeah, yeah. But sometimes some of them they're so far gone that as Karen Brown is saying, she's saying, yes, you're right. I had to tell a friend that I'm taking them to the doctor. They didn't recognize that something was wrong. And that's when they are most when they're a threat to themselves because they think that they're okay. And every time you call, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I'm doing great. But their actions is not telling you that they're okay. But I'm glad that we had that talk. Dr. Robinson, thank you very much on mental health. Maintaining mental wellness is what we are about. And with that said, we're going to segue now into Champs just concluded. You are a very technical man. Very Technical has won Girls Champs more than any other female school. 21 titles,
Hmm?
15 straight. No other school has achieved anything close to that. Let us talk about Very Technical a little bit. They're rebuilding, and I saw where you guys did a wonderful job in rounding up some support for them, and it was delivered the week of champs by Olympian Dorothy Scott Genius. I just want to big up all the Veer people, all of you who contributed, Ines Turner, Aileen Bailey, all the others that I don't know. So tell me a little bit about the program and what's going on.
Well, in my view, because I like to consider myself to be a realistic human being,
Yeah, we have
I
to.
I feel like they're the coaches, the coaching staff, did an excellent job to cause the school this time to finish. They finished 13th
11th, 13th or 11th?
13th overall
Okay.
in the female part of the championship, and either 19th or 17th in the male part of it. When you are coming from nowhere, and you get to some place, you have to appreciate where you are. Veer did not have any class 1 female athlete that I was aware of that actually came to champs. They didn't have any class 4 athlete that I could see. They might have had 1 or 2 with any impact. And they had some decent class 3 and class 2 athlete. They had one particular individual, Freighter, who ran and won the 1500 meters and who finished second in the 3000 meters. So what that tells me is that Veer has a base from where they can start, right? So they have a person who actually won, and she's young, so she's going to be there again next year. She won one event and she finished second in another one. And then I think there may be 1 or 2 other individuals who either won or perform well in their individual events. And
Indeed.
the thing that's interesting to me is that the girls finish 5th or 6th in the 4x400 meter relays, and I'm hoping to see them at the Penn relays when I go there later, when I go there at the end of next month. So I am pleased with our new coach. The name of the new coach is Mr. Combs. I'm pleased with what I saw. I think the coach did an excellent job, him and his team. He was operating with both hands tied behind his back. I feel like when he gets an opportunity to recruit his own athlete, when you get a full year to prepare his athletes and to plan and to strategize, that there should be some improvement. And I feel like as time passes, there will be marked improvements that everybody can be proud of. But the coach, the team, the school needs alumni.
Indeed, yes.
Some of our alumni who has gone on to do great things. They need everybody, all hands
on deck.
Yeah, because it's one thing when you're great, and if you fall from that spot and other people start to take up that spot, and they, because they're winning now, have the ability to improve and to keep themselves there. You know, the Idell, the Edwin Allen, St. Jago,
the
Homewood Technical.
Yeah.
To get to that level, when you're coming from down here to get back to where you used to be, we need all hands on deck. And we have some hands on deck, and we got some people like Dorothy Scott and others who are working very hard and encouraging other people to give and to participate. And we you know, there's a spark, but we need more than a spark.
Indeed, yeah.
We need a fire. And because I'm a hopeful person, and because I'm a praying person, I am praying that more people get motivated, more people get empowered, and more people feel a pulling in their spirit to go back and to give a helping hand to a school and to a program that develop them and propel them to whatever path they find themselves in at this point in their life. They didn't get there by themselves.
Indeed, indeed. And what is so very technical is so respected that even though they are not where they used to be or nowhere close, when you listen to the commentators, when you listen to people, their technical name is still being called as if they are still a part of, because many time references are made to, because even in the 1500 meters, Yvette Turner from Veer Technica still have two of those records. She has a class 3 record and the class 2 record in the 1500 meters.
Mm-hmm. True.
You
And,
know?
right. And so but we have that athlete. We need more athletes to come to VeerTech. Hopefully we can, the school can provide the nutrition, the housing, and the necessary tools that these individuals need to motivate them to come to the institution. And hopefully when they get there, they have support from the alumni to maintain that, to develop it, to build it. But I think we have a good start. And
I don't think Veer have a problem getting people to come to the institution, because Veer already have a name. The
they do.
name Veer Technical is big.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a small name, it's a big name in high school track and field. So I don't know. Do you think that maybe the management team, in terms of everybody involved, the recruiters, need to be a little bit more aggressive,
I
especially with the neighboring schools in that area?
Yeah, I mean, there are some schools, Clarendon College. I see Demby at Champs now. I mean, and I'm saying,
Demby,
who are these people, right? I grew up in Demby, so
Demby,
I know where Demby is.
Demby was
But
in the 200-meter
yeah,
class
yeah,
2 final.
yeah. I'm sitting there thinking, who are these people, right? But you know,
If
and,
you want to talk about that, let us talk about Mushet from Trelawney.
Mushet,
A
right?
school named Troy from Trelawney.
Yeah,
Another school named Robert Lightburn.
yeah,
Who are
yeah.
those schools?
Exactly. Now, St. Mary's High School, right?
St. Mary finished in the top 10.
Yeah. So, but here's the beauty about that, though, is that you can't just do business as usual and get
Yeah.
up anymore.
Yes.
You
Yes.
need resources. You
Yes.
need support. You need all hands on deck. You need people to give.
Yes.
You need good coaches. You need, and Mr. Combs he reaches out to the alumni. I've spoken to him myself, and he's trying to build a team of people. But one person, one individual just can't do it, right?
No,
'Cause
no, no, no. Not at this stage. At this stage of the game, it is going to take a team.
yeah,
It needs a team. You need the coaches need somebody behind the scene doing all the planning, doing all the fundraising, begging, whatever, looking about those little things. So at the end of the day, when you put all of that together, coaches cannot be in charge of fundraising and trying to find resources, because their main focus is to condition the athletes mentally and physically to do the job.
to
So
do
they
the job.
cannot be concentrating on make sure we have housing, make sure we have transportation, make sure that we have medical. They can't do everything.
Yeah, you don't want them distracted. You want them focusing on building young men and women. And not everybody understands that.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time this not really focused on what we need to be focused on as alumni. And I don't know how we get past that place to get to a point where we as alumni are more effective, are more efficient and more effective at what we are doing to support the teams. Because guess what happened? Veer used to be bad at football too. I don't know if you know that. Veer Tech used to be the team in soccer, but and in track. So hopefully we can. I'm excited about the track coach and the coaching staff.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the school can keep them together and that they can build a program there. Maybe the coach can build an adult program so that he can make some benefits for himself, but that they stay at their technical and actually build themselves, empower themselves, and then build a team. But I expect that it's going to take some time.
Yeah, it is definitely going to take some time. And first of all, people have to see the vision. They have to see the vision and accept that it can happen. Many times we focus more, people jump on board when you are actually a winner. What about the process? What about that stage when you are struggling and you need the help to get to where you are now? And a lot of times we miss that step. We miss that step. We don't care about the athlete who is struggling. Nobody wants to sponsor him. Nobody wants to whatever. But the minute that athlete start doing well, everybody knocking on his door. That's not when the athlete need everybody knocking on their door. The athlete need you when they can't find food, lunch, or breakfast, or whatever it may be.
Right.
When they have to be running barefooted, that's when they need you. And we need to now start getting into that mindset where we look at development.
Exactly.
And it's not just one school. A lot of schools suffers from it. Some schools have a coach for every discipline. They have a sprint coach, they have a sprint hurdles coach, they have a quarter miler coach, they have a middle long distance coach, they have a relay coach.
You know what they have? Great alumni that supports their program. That's the only way you get that. Because somebody has to pay for that, and it's not going to be the government.
And some of these people volunteer their skills. Them have a skill, they come to this school, but then again, it depends on the tradition. You have to find a way to maintain the tradition of your school. It doesn't matter who come as principal. They have to know that, look, sport is a big tradition of the school. So if you're going to come as a principal, you need to ensure that, because remember, sport is a business now. Sport is a career. A lot of all our athletes, 99% of them don't work otherwise apart from doing sport. That's where they earn.
Right.
So it has become a career. So you can't come and not try to continue the tradition, so these young people, they can get a scholarship or they can get a sponsorship to go pro in order to make a living. So but I would love to see Veer comes back into the party. I need Veer to come back into the party.
I have faith that it will happen, but we got to exercise some patience and allow time to allow time for the process to take its course.
Indeed. And what you guys did this season, it is a good thing. And the fact that, Miss Dorothy, I call her Auntie Dorothy, she went and as an Olympian, because I posted the video when she was giving her speech and the athletes, they were listening, and she was talking about her glory days, that Veer Technical was the school that helped her to get to even becoming an Olympian and all of that. So I think that motivated the athletes, and I hope that you guys will continue to do something like that. So next year again, when it's champs, another batch can go and give them the pep talk and let them know that, keep it going.
Let me tell you something real quick before we end, because we've been on for almost 2 hours.
Yes, yeah.
Dorothy Scott. I didn't know Dorothy Scott. And
you didn't?
No, and I wasn't really aware of Dorothy Scott. Saw her on your program, and she's in a group. She's in she's in the global group with me. And I've spoken to her numerous times on the phone now. And I feel like I've known the woman my whole life.
That's how she is. Yes, that's how
I,
she is.
I, I feel like I've known her forever. She's warm and very accepting, wonderful personality,
Yes.
and I'm not surprised that she was able to bring all these people together and was able to raise the resources and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was needed to get the job done for the kids. So yeah, um, I feel like I've known her my whole life, just how warm and accepting and caring she is about what she's doing.
That's how she is. When I first got her to come on the program, and I talked to her a few days before coming on, just to give her, an idea what we're going to talk about and stuff. We were on the phone for more than an hour talking as if I've known her all my life. So I call her Auntie Dorothy. She's Auntie Dorothy. And not just that alone, that she did while she was in Jamaica, because Corey Bennett from Hydel came on the program, and he was also expressing that their program needs help, and we were trying to get the alumni and the community involved. Auntie Dorothy, the same Dorothy Scott, she made her way over to Hydel with a donation. And she said to me, she said, Heather, I went to Very Technical, but we are giving back to Jamaica, because at the end of the day, it is about Jamaica. And these athletes will be competing for Jamaica. And she went over by Hydel, met with the young ladies, encouraged them a little bit. And I saw the pictures, I got pictures. So she wasn't just there for Veer alone, she was also there for another school that needed a little energy. And this is what we want in the sport, where retired athletes, it doesn't matter which school you're from. And what is so funny is that the lady that Ines Turner made the link with to get those spikes, she actually went to St. Andrew High School.
Mm,
So you see what I'm trying to show
right,
you?
right, right.
Everybody is helping. It doesn't matter which school these children go, because this weekend, all of us will be cheering them on at the Carifta Games, not even remembering which school they went to.
Exactly.
So I'm just showing you that you have people from different alumni. They're just going around and helping, and that is what we need in the sport. So next year again, if Miss Dorothy cannot go, another batch need to go and give them their little pep talk. And now is the time to start begging
Hmm.
for next year. Don't wait until next year. Start now.
Raising funds.
Yeah, yeah, don't wait until that time. Start begging from now and put it together. Go down again and, you know, talk to them. Let them know that somebody who have done it is here. And she, as an Olympian and a Veer girl, she was able to, and I mean, she was just talking with them. It was so easy for her.
Hmm.
She was talking to them and laughing with them, and she even saw people who she never saw from, she haven't seen from the 1970s.
Hmm.
That is what sport does. Sports bring people together. Carol Beckford always says sports bring people together. And this is what I like to see. We supporting the children, because when they hang up their school kit, they're more likely going to be putting on the Jamaican kit, even while they're in high school.
Right.
So it was a good look. I felt good, very good about that. And, Miss Dorothy in Jamaica making her rounds. So, yep, big up Veer for that. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah. So we've gone up dead on 2 hours. But Dr. Robinson, thank you for being here again and talking to us about mental health and how important mental wellness is. And let me tell you, I even get a free consultation from you, because, of course, I am going through my stuff also with the losses and stuff. But it was good for you to be here, and I hope that the audience and anybody who will be watching this will get something from it because you've shared some good information, coping mechanism, and don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're not having a good day, call somebody. There must be at least one person in your life that you can pick up the phone and call and say, today I'm not feeling, today I'm just feeling as if I don't exist, or I'm just feeling as if I'm not worthy. Whatever you are feeling, don't be afraid to say to somebody, just reach out. Just reach out. So with that said, thank you very much for being here, Dr. Robinson. Do you have any last remark before I click on that button?
No, thank you for having me on and allowing me an opportunity to share with your audience. I hope that people learn something about mental health, mental wellness, and that if you are experiencing any kind of mental health challenges, that you would reach out to a professional and work your way through that process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you for staying with us for 2 hours. But in my opinion, it was worth it. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Winston Cousins, Monica Lewis, Marlene Green, Karen Brown. Vivian was here earlier, Olympian Vivian Morano. Regina was also here. Thank you very much. Marcia. I'm not sure how she pronounced her last name, but Marcia, thank you for being here. Also, everyone for being here. Thank you all so much for tuning in, whether you're tuning in from Africa, Europe, Oceanic, Antarctica, Asia, South America, North America, wherever you are tuning in from. Thank you very much. And I will catch you guys again, same place next week. I will have an outstanding Olympian in the house from the 1960s. So you don't want to miss her story. She will be with us next week. Thank you guys very much for being here. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.